Hey there everybody, Scotia here with a kind of depressing video for today because as of last night, or the night before I started recording this, I finished the Khaos Reigns story mode. Obviously Khaos Reigns is the new expansion for Mortal Kombat 1, and yeah, I just didn't like it, I mean, obviously quite a lot of people have been voicing their issues, the kind of things that they just didn't like about the story mode. I don't really want this video to be entirely that. I don't want this to be a massive critique, up and down of the whole story mode. I could easily do that, but I think there's a kind of bigger problem here in terms of my feelings post Khaos Reigns of just this whole series, because it's sad because I'm kind of just I just kind of don't like Mortal Kombat anymore. I've come to that realization where I just don't really care about this series anymore, and it's just sad because I grew up with Mortal Kombat. It's been such a huge part of my life for so long now. Now we're at MK1 and I've kind of had so many ups and downs with MK1. I've really liked it in some aspects and I've really hated it in others. And now I'm at the point where with the story, especially after Khaos Reigns, I just don't like Mortal Kombat anymore. And it's just sad, and it kind of comes into where the title of this video is. It's just, I just don't think Mortal Kombat is special anymore. And that's just depressing. So I kind of will address some aspects, specifically as to why I feel this way, why I just don't feel like MK is special anymore, why I don't really just like it anymore. And the main reason, like I've been saying with the story, is just the writing. I think the writing is just so bad. It's so just not what this series is. I mean, playing the story mode for Khaos Reigns last night, I just, like, so much of it, I just didn't recognize it as Mortal Kombat. And this is one of the more annoying things. It's like you can kind of hand wave like everything I'm going to say in this video, every criticism, every complaint, you can easily hand wave it as like, oh, it's a new era, they're doing something new. And I understand that, but it's still Mortal Kombat. The game is still called Mortal Kombat. If you're trying to do, like, by all means do a new era, shake things up, but when you still name it Mortal Kombat, there is still that expectation that it is Mortal Kombat. And playing Khaos Reigns, this just isn't Mortal Kombat. Nothing that happened in that story mode felt like MK. Like, there was not a single ounce of anything in Khaos Reigns that brought me back to that childhood feeling of, watching, my dad and my brother mess around with MK Trilogy. It made me feel nothing of the days where I would run around in Conquest mode in Deception. There was just none of it, and you can kind of chalk that up to childhood nostalgia, but and it very much is in some aspects, and that stuff sticks with you. And when you get a game like MK9, which just really gets what made those original games so special, why people really loved them back then, and change the stuff here and there. Like, I'm not going to pretend everything about MK9 was perfect. There was some issues with it, like to this day there's some story stuff that I just don't really understand, but overall it was a game that I felt like got what MK was. It got why people liked MK. And now I look at it now, and I look at MK1, and I look at Khaos Reigns especially, and I don't see that anymore. I see, this game made by people that want MK to chase trends. They want MK to be whatever is currently, the latest fad in superhero movies. Like, so much of this game feels like it's just chasing after the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, you've got multiverses, you've got, like, there are specific scenes that, like, literally are almost shot for shot from, like, Marvel movies, and it's just like, it's just crazy to me. Like, obviously MK has always had so much inspiration and has taken so much stuff from, a lot of 80s stuff, even some 70s stuff at the time, back in the early 90s. And that, that's great, and that is, a lot of the backbone. But, a lot of that stuff was done by John Tobias, who was taking his memories and his own nostalgia and kind of molding it into his own vision. It wasn't just going straight for, shot for shot, here's this thing from this old film I liked back when I was a kid. There's nothing really like that. And you look at Khaos Reigns, and so much of it just feels like it's just chasing trends. Nothing feels genuine. It just feels like we're just the writers and everything like that. It feels like they're just so locked in on just like, okay, how do we just copy Marvel? How do we make this feel like? Because that's the thing, and that's the reputation that NRS have with their story modes. The presentation, I can't fault the presentation for anything. That was the one thing that I probably enjoyed the most out of Khaos Reigns, was that the whole presentation of the story mode and the visuals and everything like that, the production quality and the production values, all of that was great still, just like it was in Injustice 2, just like it was in MK11, and just like it was in the main story of MK1. It was still great, but so much of the actual story itself was just so it just felt like it's just made by people that just want to chase that. They just want to chase that MCU. Like, what's popular in the MCU right now? Multiverse. So let's just have the whole story just be this giant multiverse nonsense. Nothing about any of what happened in Khaos Reigns felt like MK. I'm going to say that a lot. Feels like MK. And I get that's a sort of subjective thing, and I know a lot of people aren't really going to feel the same way that I feel about MK, like the things that I associate with MK. People aren't really going to, agree with that, because so many people jumped in to the series at different points, and so many people, have games that they like more than others. Like, Deception is probably one of my favorite games in the series. I would say it's my favorite, but I think MK 9 was just such a perfect game at the perfect time for me. But Deception, I think, to me, is just, when I think of MK and I think of the whole MK universe, no game really just fits that bill better in terms of just, this is how I envision MK, or this is how I feel MK should be, than Deception. Because everything about Conquest Mode is just amazing. Is it the best game mode ever made? Of course not. I can totally, accept that there are some criticisms you can make about it. But for a first time attempt at it, it was fantastic. And I still to this day think no other game in the series has done a better job, or rather has done any job, of exploring the actual world, the actual universe, the actual mythos of MK better than Deception's Conquest Mode did. And that's sad, because that game's old now. I mean, I think that game's coming up to nearly 20 years old now, which is kind of crazy, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, no, and it's just this thing of like, so much of what Deception did, like exploring the realms, actually showing us what's in this world, showing us, like, letting us explore Outworld, of our own free will. We're not locked to this specific stage, we're not locked into this specific part of Outworld. You've got the whole thing, same with Earthrealm, and then also letting us explore these new realms fully, like these new realms that are debuting for the first time, Chaos Realm, Order Realm, showing us how these worlds work, how these people go about their days. And it's not perfect, like I said, it is a PS2 game at the end of the day. It can only really do, what the PS2 allows it to do. It couldn't have full, I mean, even then I was going to say day and night cycles, but it does have that. Yeah, I mean, even that, Conquest Mode and Deception did crazy stuff, and it's sad to me that no other game has really nailed that, or even really attempted to, nail that. And at the same time, so I think about Khaos Reigns, and I just think about how so much of just what made this series special just isn't there anymore. And this is probably going to seem like sort of anecdotal, but the best example I can think of right now, sitting here going through my memory of what actually happened in that storybook, because so much of it was such a waste of time. Like pretty much the massive middle chunk of Khaos Reigns is just, characters running between rooms and just fighting a bunch of just shitty reskins of like characters from the base roster and some DLC characters. And it's literally just that. I mean, the Rain and Tanya chapters are just nothing but just the characters running between the same rooms. Like you have a fight on the maze stage. I think it's called the maze. We got the traps and the fire stuff in the back. You have a fight on that stage. You beat up an ugly looking Kenshi or an ugly looking Katana and Melina. You beat them up. A cutscene plays. Something, they talk about, we gotta go find Havoc, we gotta go stop Havoc, we gotta go find Bihan, and then they run away and they keep talking about, we gotta find Bihan, we gotta stop Havoc, and then there's a trap segment and they have to avoid this trap, they gotta do all this stuff, and then they run into a room, and then they run into this other room, and then another version of an ugly Melina and an ugly Katana show up, and now you got to fight them again in the same stage. And that is literally, like, I think Khaos Reigns was like 5 chapters long. That is the core kind of like format of Khaos Reigns for at least 3 chapters. Like chapters 2, 3, and 4 was just that, and it was just boring. And I think I may kind of come into this later, but the thing that just kind of annoyed me the most is so much of Khaos Reigns just felt like it's just the worst type of anime filler. Like the only purpose this entire story mode served was it was used as a vehicle to get us Noob Saibot. And I might talk about that later. Like I said, I don't want this to be a massive, up and down critique of the story, like plot beat by plot beat. But, you know, I have my own issues with Noob in this, which, you know, like I said, I may get to, I may not. But that being the only reason this story mode even exists, this being the only reason we even get Havoc in this kind of lead starring villain role, which even then isn't that great. I mean, I like Havoc a lot, and I think this version of Havoc is cool. I just don't think he works as a main villain, because, you know, when you look at main villains, especially in fighting games, it's like, what's their motivations? Why are they doing this? Why do we have to stop this character from achieving their goals? And, you know, sometimes it's generic, especially when you look at older games. I mean, you look at Street Fighter 2, what's Bison's goal? Like, why do we have to stop Bison? It's because he's just a criminal. You know, obviously later games, you know, brought in more of the psycho power plot and, you know, doomsday stuff and ruling the world. But in the original Street Fighter 2, it was just because Bison was just a criminal, and you just had to stop him because he was a criminal and he was doing criminal things. And if you didn't stop him, he was going to keep doing criminal things and keep killing people and, you know, silencing people like he did to Charlie, etc., etc., you know, Chun-Li's dad, whatever. And then you kind of look at more modern games, like, why did we have to stop Kronika? Well, you know, because she was trying to create her own perfect timeline that basically erased any and all free will, from what I remember. Maybe I got some of that stuff, you know, mixed up, because it's been a long time since I played MK11 story mode. But, you know, there's something there, there's motivations there, because you throw in the stuff with Havoc, and why Kronika, not Havoc, Shinnok, and why Kronika, you know, is so mad at Raiden specifically, because, you know, the whole stuff with Shinnok happened. And then you just look at Havoc in this story mode, and it's just like, why is Havoc doing all this? Well, because he just wants to spread chaos across all the realm. He wants to go across to every timeline, merge them into his own, and just have this massive chaos, you know, it's just chaos. Did you know that this is Khaos Reigns? Did you know that there's chaos in Khaos Reigns? The whole fucking thing, every plot point, it's just chaos. Like, that's just Havoc's thing. It's just chaos, and that's fine, because that is Havoc's character. Havoc is the cleric of chaos. He's been like that since his debut. But there's a reason why Havoc wasn't the main villain in MK Deception. It's why he was a regular member of the cast, because you can absolutely have a character like that. I mean, it's been a long time since I've heard people, you know, refer to him as this. But, you know, back in the day, I used to remember people that used to say that Havoc was like MK's Joker, in terms of him, you know, just not having any real reason to anything he did. Like, there was no method in the madness with the Joker, just like there's no method in the madness with Havoc. And that makes him and Joker very entertaining characters, because you never know what they're going to do next. But when you make that character that's like that, when you make them the main villain, there's just no real rhyme or reason to the main plot. You know, just as a result of doing that, like, why did we need to stop Havoc? Oh, he just wanted to make everything chaos. Okay, and is that it? Yeah. Well, okay. So we beat Chaos. We beat Havoc. Even now I'm getting confused with the Chaos stuff. So we beat Havoc, and we've supposedly stopped Chaos. Even then, we don't even see Havoc once you beat Noob. So I mean, what the fuck even happened with him? Doesn't matter. Who cares? I sure as shit didn't by that point. So, you know, we beat Havoc. Havoc is somewhere, you know, defeated. Okay, cool. So what happens now? We've stopped Chaos. No, because, you know, we can't really do anything with Havoc, because if we kill Havoc, we might kill everybody in his realm. Okay, that kind of seems stupid. So by that logic, if Liu Kang dies, does that mean this universe dies? Like, this timeline dies? It's just nonsense. It's just fucking stupid. And I'm sorry, but, like, it's just not MK. And I'm not opposed to stuff like this happening. I think the premise of MK11 story mode, by, you know, having the past cross with the future or the present, I thought it was very interesting, and it led to a lot of really cool, you know, interactions between kind of like, here's Johnny Cage when he was younger and an absolute dickhead, and he's now meeting, you know, older Johnny Cage, who's a dad and is matured and has all this life experience, and that kind of like young dickhead Johnny learning from, you know, old experienced Johnny, but also old experienced Johnny seeing young Johnny and going like, man, you know, I really did make those good choices. Like, where I'm at now, like, considering, like, seeing where I was directly, like, this is who I used to be, you know, I'm happy with where I'm at in life. And that was sick. I loved that. Like, stuff like that was really cool. What I didn't like about 11 was everything about Titans. And I am sick to fucking death of Titans. I'm sick of hearing about Titans. I'm sick of hearing about timelines, about multiverses, about hourglasses, about all this shit. I'm just so sick of it. And if we even get to MK13, wherever this series ends up going, I don't really care at this point. But, you know, at the very least, I'm not going to give MK13 or whatever, or MK2 if they want to go that route. Whatever the next MK game is, if this Titan shit is still in here and this Hourglass and Multiverse shit is still in here, I'm not even going to bother. Like, I'm not giving it the time of day. Like, just from the jump, like, I'm so sick of all this. I'm like, this stuff is just not what I want from MK, and it's not what a lot of people want from MK. And obviously, some people enjoy this stuff. People will enjoy what NRS put out just because they have really good production values, and that's fine. I'm not knocking anybody for being fine with the story, you know, or where the story's at. If you enjoy it, then good for you. But I'm more just speaking as somebody from, you know, somebody who grew up with MK, who's been here not from the beginning, but, you know, from the early days of their life, have been with the series and have seen it grown, and have just seen how the series from pretty much, you know, roughly MKX onwards, although I would more kind of blame MK11 for this. You know, just seeing this series just slowly devolve into just the most generic trend-chasing slop, and it's just sad. And the big thing is just comparing, you know, MK Deception and comparing it to Khaos Reigns, and just seeing how just different and just, it's just not the same. Like, I don't recognize this as MK. If you showed me stuff from Khaos Reigns not even 5 years ago and you said this is MK now, I would be like, well, that's just weird, because it doesn't look like MK, doesn't sound like MK, doesn't feel like MK. Nothing about, I mean, and that's the thing, there's cool stuff here. Like, a lot of the stages looked really cool. Like, I like the kind of, like, if you can say that Havoc's, you know, timeline where he's the Titan, like, if this is the Chaos Realm, which it pretty much is. They don't call it the Chaos Realm, I don't think, but it pretty much is the Chaos Realm. It looks really cool, and visually I love it, but it's just this thing of, like, it's just surrounded in so much shit. Like, why couldn't this just be the Chaos Realm in the normal timeline? Like, why couldn't we just go to the normal Chaos Realm and find a normal Havoc and just fight him there? Like, why did we have to jump through timelines? Why did we have to do all this shit with portals and hourglasses and Titans and all this stuff? Why does this story have to be surrounded by this nonsense that the series doesn't need? It never needed it. We never needed Titans. Titans didn't exist prior to MK11, and the series was fine. It was better off without Titans, and yeah, it's just Titans. Everything is just Titans. Everything is hourglasses. The whole premise of the invasions mode is just this Titan from this timeline. I don't care. What does, here's Scorpion who beat Kronika and got the hourglass. What does that mean to me? It means nothing. I don't care. It's pointless. It's just, why can't I not just fight Scorpion? Why does it have to be Titan Scorpion? Why does it have to be Titan Sub-Zero? Why does it have to be Titan Melina, Titan Geras, Titan Noob, Titan Smoke? It doesn't. It's so pointless, and it's just so unnecessary. And it just goes hand in hand with just how just slop, like, the series just feels like slop. And the best example I can think of this is, and this is going to seem so inconsequential, and it's going to be like, this is really what you're getting all up in arms about, and I totally get that, but just when I explain it, hopefully you'll understand what I mean. So there's a part early on in Khaos Reigns, well, I'd say roughly halfway through maybe, where Sub-Zero is captured by Havoc, and Havoc basically starts explaining his evil plan of just, you know, chaos throughout all the realms, throughout all the timelines, whatever. And he starts going through all this stuff, and then he says, like, oh, I'm going to use the Kamidogu. And I was like, oh, the Kamidogu, nice, because obviously we haven't had the Kamidogu established in this timeline yet. I was like, nice, the Kamidogu. And then Havoc starts pointing around the room or something, and he starts looking around, and then these little glowy bits come out of the floor. I'm like, huh, oh, okay, these are the Kamidogu, and they're glowing different colours, like one light is blue, one light is yellow. And I'm like, oh, nice. And then they rise up out of the ground, and they're just fucking Infinity Stones. They're just Infinity Stones. They are just glowing stones. And I just looked at it, and I was just like, for fuck's sake, like, can we just not have anything be unique? Why is this just chasing Infinity Stones? Like, why, you know, when you look at what the Kamidogu used to look like in MK Deception, they had such cool designs, and each one was unique to that realm. I think the Chaos Realm Kamidogu looked completely different and had its own unique design compared to the Earth Realm Kamidogu, which had its own unique design compared to the Order Realm Kamidogu and the Nether Realm Kamidogu. They were all so unique, and in some ways they reflected the realm. Like with the Earth Realm Kamidogu, which was kind of like half blue and half green, which is, obviously representing, earth and water, which is, what makes up this actual Earth, like the planet. Like, when you look at a map, it's like all the continents are green, all the water is blue, because the source is kind of like, it's the makeup of our planet. And it makes complete perfect sense. And then you look at Khaos Reigns and the Kamidogu, like which Kamidogu was Earthrealms? You can't tell, because none of them look any different. It's just the different colours. Who knows? They just went, oh, this is the Kamidogu. And then later on, Havoc just rammed them in his chest, and that was just it. Because, Havoc's freaky, and he does all this body horror stuff. So, instead of cramming the Infinity Stones into a gauntlet like Thanos, he shoves them into his chest. Like, no, it's just shit. Like, if he actually crammed the actual unique looking Kamidogu into his chest, yeah, cool, I can get with that. But it's just the whole thing with the Kamidogu, it just was so obviously it was just them like, oh, we're just going to do our own Infinity Stones, even though, they could have just made something new for that. If they wanted to just do Infinity Stones, they could have just gone, okay, here's the Infinity Stones, like, we're going to call them our own thing, Chaos Gems. There you go. That took me 2 seconds while rambling in this video to come up with a better thing than just going, hey, here's this completely random thing we just ripped off the MCU, but we're just going to call it this thing that already exists from the older games, because then hopefully the people who actually know what Kamidogus are can go, oh, Kamidogus, I remember that name, that was nice, I had a memory. And that feels like that is the extent, it feels like, of how they use past aspects of the series, like elements of the series that they actually don't really use the same way they used to. They just go, oh yeah, like, let's just use it in this completely different way, and just hope people go, oh, I remember that. It's like that. It's just, oh, I had a memory. Cool. Like, it's not the same. Like, you've just taken this element from the older games, which were really cool, and just completely made them generic, and just tied them to some MCU type slot. It's just shit. It's shit. It's so lazy, it's so unimaginative, and it's just where this series is at now. It's just where we are. This whole series is just so boring, it's so generic, it's just chasing trends. It's just, here's a multiverse, here's Infinity Stones. Even Cyrax and Sector are just basically fucking Iron Man, like the way they work. And I as a concept, I don't mind it. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Cyrax and Sector. Well, I mean, like, visually. Cyrax I like as a character. I didn't like Sector in this, which, again, I might get into later. But, I like the concept of, we're doing a new era, everything is kind of going down, it's almost a kind of like Batman Year One type thing. Everything's going down to its most basic elements. Batman isn't wearing his, latest up-to-date armor, and doesn't have his massive Batcave with all of his gadgets and years of, crimes he's solved and criminals he's put away to reflect that. His basic Batman, it's his most basic element when he just first started. And that kind of thing, being for all the characters, makes a lot of sense to me, and that is the aspect of MK1's story mode that I actually quite liked, in the main story, kind of like re-establishing these characters and going, okay, this is this character back at their, like, starting point, and then we kind of build them back up again, and we do little things differently here and there. That's fine, and I like that thing for Cyrax and Sector. Is it better than having their old stories where they were, normal people kind of experimented on and then, turned into cyborgs? No, it's not. Like, I can kind of see why people might think it's better, but I think story-wise, the old versions were better. But, we've also had 2 different versions now of Cyrax and Sector and that storyline being done, so I can kind of, like, I'm more forgiving of going, like, okay, here's just a completely different type of Cyrax and Sector, and that's fine. But then you look at the little things about them, and it's just Iron Man. Like, there's so many of their elements. I mean, the startup of Sector's Fatal Blow, it's literally just the inside, like that shot you always see in MCU films where it's where you see Robert Downey Jr.'s face. It's all shadowed because he's meant to be inside his helmet, and he's got all these screens, and the AI in his suit is telling him all this stuff. And, like, it's just that. It's literally just that. Like, it's another thing from the MCU you've just taken. And, again, homages, stuff like that is fine, but when it's just, like, when there's so much of it and it's just so blatant to the point where like people can literally, like back in the trailers for Khaos Reigns, they were literally going like, oh yeah, this specific shot of all the Havocs is taken from that one MCU film where it's a bunch of, I can't remember his name. Is it Kang? I think it was Kang the Conqueror or something like that. You know, there's a shot from one of the MCU films from a couple of years ago where like you see all the same versions of this one guy, I think called Kang, and like you see all these, you know, and they're all celebrating in this like arena stadium type thing. Same exact shot in Khaos Reigns with all the Havocs, same exact concept. They're all in an arena coliseum watching, you know, and it's just when John Tobias took all these inspirations, like Motaro was based on an old toy he had when he was a kid. That stuff is great because you're taking stuff as inspiration, but then you're making it your own. You're molding it into something that becomes its own recognizable shape. And there's just none of that here. There's no molding being done by NRS like these days. Like there's nothing. It's just you're just taking something from something else that you watched or you took inspiration from, and you're just going, okay, here it is, but it's MK now. Like here's this thing that you've seen a dozen times in all these films, but we're doing it now, and it's like, okay, I just don't care. I don't care. It's just not. I don't want to see MCU shit in MK. Like it's not what I got into MK for, and it's just sad, and it's just kind of depressing to see that this is where the series is now, and I don't expect it to change. I mean, in some ways it could, because you know, we've known for a while now that the script for Khaos Reigns was leaked when the game came out, so you know, this is stuff that's been in production for a while now, so they probably didn't have much chance to really change stuff in response to, you know, how many people hated the last chapter of MK1's main story mode. I didn't like it either. I thought it was fun, but it was one of those things where like it happened so late and we already had like so much of like a normal story that I kind of didn't mind it. You know, it's that thing where I could easily go, you know, this part was shit, but then all these other stuff was really cool, and you know, I was a bit more forgiving of the main story for that, because I did really enjoy like at least the first half of MK1 story mode. I thought was great, and that's more of what I want. And then you just get to Khaos Reigns, and this just from start to finish was just shit. It was just nonsense, just doubled, quadrupled down on all the bad aspects of the main story, all the bad aspects of MK11's story, just doubling down on Titans and, you know, timelines and hourglasses, and just you know, just no concept of what this series, you know, used to be or what this series could be. It's just, here's just chasing trends, and I keep saying it a lot, and I know I'm repeating myself, and I'm sorry. This is what happens when I ramble without a script. But yeah, and it's just all this stuff is just, it's just gone to the point now where I just don't care. I just don't care about MK anymore. I mean, so much of this series now, like, this is a thing that really annoys me about how they've done this new era, is they've taken all these characters that haven't been in the game in so long, like Li Mei, Havoc, Natara, Tanya, and you know, you see all these characters that, you know, don't often appear in games, and they're finally back for the first time in ages, but because of this new era stuff, it's just not them. And, you know, I was really excited at the idea of seeing Li Mei in this game, for example, because I've always felt like Li Mei as a character had a lot of potential to be, you know, an interesting character to bring back. I think her backstory in, you know, Deadly Alliance was really cool, you know, her being this young girl from her village in Outworld. It's been subjugated, you know, for centuries by, you know, by Onaga, then Shao Kahn, and then it finally has some peace post MK3, and then, you know, Shang Tsung and Quan Chi come in as the Deadly Alliance, and they, you know, enslave the whole town again. And, you know, she's the only one that is willing to rise up and kind of like compete in their tournament to free her town. And that's really cool. And I was looking forward to seeing that, you know, explored a bit more. You know, her relationship with Sundo, her hometown, and stuff like that. And then you get to MK1 and you just see it, and it's not Li Mei. It's, you know, I like Li Mei in MK1. She's a cool character. She does a lot of cool stuff. It's not Li Mei. It's just, this is a new character that is just called Li Mei. And it's the same with Havoc, really. Not so much Khaos Reigns Havoc, because, you know, a lot of Khaos Reigns Havoc is kind of similar to how Havoc, you know, was in Deception and all that. But like the main story Havoc, again, same thing. It's not Havoc, it's Dairu. And I really liked the Dairu thing, because Dairu is a character we're never seeing Dairu again, like normally. And nor should we really. Dairu is a terrible character. But, you know, merging those two characters, I think, was interesting to kind of give a bit more backstory to Havoc. But then you see Havoc's role in the story, and it's not Havoc. Like, the Havoc in Khaos Reigns is a much better attempt at actually doing Havoc. But the Havoc in the main story, like our main universe Havoc, is just, it's just some guy. He's just a lackey. He just, like, it has nothing to do with how Havoc was in the original games. It's nothing to do with what Havoc used to be like, why people liked Havoc originally. And it's just sad, because you finally bring back these characters that have been gone for ages, and then you bring them back, and they're just not the same. They're just not the same character, and it's like, well, that's just disappointing then. But then you look at the other characters that are in every game that come back, and they're just still the same. Like, Kuai Liang is still Kuai Liang. He's just Scorpion now for some fucking stupid reason, which I will go to my grave thinking that the worst part of this, the entire thing they've done in this new era, the worst choice they've made writing-wise was making Kuai Liang Scorpion. I cannot think of a more pointless, more debilitating change that has just ruined so many characters just by association. Harumi has been fucked up by this. Kuai Liang has been obviously fucked up by this. Hanzo, poor Hanzo, has been absolutely ruined by this. Just stupid choice that just screams like, oh, we're shaking things up now. Oh, look at this new era, and like Kuai Liang, like Sub-Zero is now Scorpion. But he's not, he's just called Scorpion, but it's still Kuai Liang, he just uses fire now. Like, personality-wise, he is still Kuai Liang. Nothing about him is different. Him being Scorpion has changed nothing about his personality, except he's just more of a dick now, because he's a complete asshole to Cyrax for the vast majority of the story mode, for no real reason other than, oh shit, Scorpion's angry, so we'll make Kuai Liang angry, but it just makes him seem like an absolute dickhead. So, good job, guys. And it's just so much of that, and like nothing about it, but it's just a change for the sake of having a change. Of, oh, we're shaking things up, but you don't do anything to actually change the character. And then you look at like Johnny Cage. Like, Johnny Cage is exactly the same, except he now has like Cassie's social media gimmick, because fuck actually trying to do something different with Johnny Cage. Yeah, Kung Lao is probably the most boring character in this entire game. He is so, like, what is the point of having Kung Lao here? He's just the second Shaolin monk, but character-wise, he is exactly the same. He looks the same, personality is the same, story is pretty much the same. Nothing about him is different, nothing about him has changed. It's just Kung Lao again. And so much of like, when you break it down, and like all these characters, like even Katana, she's just Katana, she's just Melina's younger sister, and it's like, okay. It's just so much of like their personality and stuff like that. It's just no different. Like, these characters that come back, that you would, on paper, like mentally, you would be like, okay, these are the characters that should be changing, because we've seen them so many times now that just doing their same thing again, it's just boring. It doesn't really do anything different. So surely these characters are going to be the ones that are changed, and then these other characters that we haven't seen in a while, we'll change stuff here and there if we need to, but we're still going to roughly keep them the same. No, the characters that always come back are the same, but the characters that don't come back often, no, they're completely different. I mean, Tanya might as well not be fucking Tanya. Like, she's so completely, she's not Tanya. Even the Tanya in Khaos Reigns is just not Tanya. Like, that is not, like, that you have made a new character that is also called Tanya, who wears yellow. Like, that's all you've done. Like, Tanya in this game, in both Khaos Reigns and the main story, like, that is not Tanya. That is not the character people got used to. And again, you can say, well, it's a new era, but at least make the character, like, if you're naming a character Tanya, and you're saying this is the new era Tanya, at least keep things familiar. There's nothing about her that's similar, except the same that she's a black woman called Tanya who wears yellow. That's it. That is it. That is the only thing about Tanya that is the same from the previous games. Everything else about her is completely different. And it's just shit. And, I could go on forever. I mean, my issues with Sector and Noob that I said earlier, I might as well cover that now while I'm here. Sector, I thought, was just a massive simp for Bihan. And I think that just completely ruined her character. She had no character, to be honest. I can't think of a single moment in this story where she wasn't thinking about Bihan, talking about Bihan, or working with Bihan. Like, every second she's on screen, she's talking about Bihan. She's thinking about Bihan. We gotta go rescue Bihan. We can't stop. We have to make sure like that Bihan, is saved from Havoc. We have to. I'm working with Bihan. I'm loyal to Bihan's plan. You can't kill Noob because he's still Bihan. Everything is Bihan, and it's just, what a reduction of that character. And just making a character who used to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. Not well. I mean, Sector has always kind of been the other cyborg, throughout MK. But, at least he was able to stand on his own feet. This version of Sector is just, it's just, her sole purpose is just to be a sort of weird romantic interest to Bihan that doesn't even really go anywhere. It seems like a completely one-sided romance. I mean, I remember hearing that, like, it was a mutual thing. Maybe it is. I haven't seen all the endings. I've seen Sector's arcade ending. where she just rescues Bihan or Noob. So, you know, again, her entire ending is about Noob slash Bihan, which is awesome. And yeah, I just didn't care for her. I just didn't think, I think aspects of her, like, were okay, but she's just, like, nothing about her that was unique to her was explored at all. Her relationship with Cyrax was basically non-existent after the first chapter. Cyrax in general was basically non-existent after the first chapter up until like one of the last scenes where she joins the Shirai Ryu, which is a shame because like I think Cyrax was easily the character I liked the most out of the 3 MK new characters. Like out of her, Sector and Noob, I think Cyrax was probably the one I liked the most. But she got dealt the worst in terms of just like presence in the story. I mean, her chapter was the shortest. They absolutely just speed ran through her entire arc in terms of just like being this kind of like unknowingly kind of, allied to Bihan and Sector's evil plan without really knowing about it, having an idea something was up, but being more loyal to the Lin Kuei than to them, and kind of having that suspicion, kind of opening the door, like, okay, out of everybody involved in the Lin Kuei, Cyrax is more likely to see the light and join the good guys in the Shirai Ryu. And obviously that was always going to be the ending for that arc, because it's always been Cyrax's arc is to eventually, turn to the good side. But they completely just sped through it for no reason. I mean, she goes literally in like the first 15 minutes of the story mode, she goes from training with Sector to being somewhat suspicious of Bihan and Sector but still being loyal to the Lin Kuei, to then attacking Kuai Liang's wedding, saving the lives of people even though it's a literal blood battle going on or whatever, like it's a literal war at this wedding, people dying left and right. She's still trying to save people. Like, no, don't kill Harumi, she's only like the fucking founder of the Shirai Ryu. Our fight's not with her. What? Of course it is. Of course the fight's with her. She's literally, the Shirai Ryu is named after her. Like, of course she's a part of it. And then the second Kuai Liang shows up and goes like, oh yeah, by the way, Bihan like killed our dad and like lied, and she's immediately like, is this true? Obviously she had her suspicions, so it is just kind of like confirming stuff, but then Bihan just goes like, yeah, it's all true, and and just she'd be like, oh, I can't believe I trusted you, and then that's it. Like, she then spends the rest of the story mode just kind of like begging for Kuai Liang's forgiveness, and Kuai Liang the whole time is just like, fuck off. And it's like, what? Like, and he even says it at the end, like, Kuai Liang, you were just as easily manipulated by Bihan's lies throughout the entirety of the main story, You fell for it hook, line and sinker just as much as Cyrax did. Why are you now doing this holier than thou shit, saying like, oh, that's no excuse, you were following orders, that was no excuse? Bitch, you were following orders as well, what the fuck are you talking about? And then you have the only reason that he didn't even kill Cyrax at the end of the wedding fight was because Harumi was like, no, don't kill her. And then Kuai Liang's like, well, no, she attacked the wedding, I've got to do her, she's a betrayer. And then Harumi's like, no, don't kill her as a wedding gift. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck is going? Like, what? He's so easy. He's so quick to kill Cyrax for being manipulated. The same thing he and Smoke went through before they eventually found out the truth, and then went and founded the Shirai Ryu. Cyrax is now doing the exact same thing. She was manipulated. She's now found out the truth, and you're like, no, I'm still gonna kill you anyway. But then you're only stopped because your wife is like, oh no, like it's the fucking Godfather. Like, oh, on the day of my wedding, don't what the? It's just so bad. It's so bad. And then at the end of the game, after everything that's happened, and when Cyrax saves Kuai Liang's life in like a really generic, like she just pushed him a bit further so he didn't fall off a bridge, that is enough to sway Kuai Liang's mind that, oh, Cyrax is actually good enough. But even then, afterwards, he's still talking to Liu Kang and is like, I don't know if I can trust Cyrax. What the fuck? What has Cyrax done to you? Why are you so... Like, the hate boner Kuai Liang has for Cyrax in the story mode is fucking baffling. It makes no sense. He despises Cyrax. He despises Cyrax more than he despises Sector. He doesn't give Sector nearly as much shit throughout the story mode of Khaos Reigns. And Sector openly, willingly, gladly goes along with everything Bihan did. And not only does that, believes in it wholeheartedly that everything Bihan says and does is the right path. And he doesn't even give her remotely half the shit that he gives Cyrax throughout this chapter. And Cyrax from minute one, as soon as she, abandons Bihan and Sector and sides with Kuai Liang and the Shirai Ryu. From that moment, Cyrax is like, I'm sorry, I fucked up, I'm really sorry, you know, I accept any punishment, it's completely my fault. And Kuai Liang's like, no, that's not good enough, fuck you. It's just shit. And like the fact that the only reason he didn't kill her was because Harumi was like, no, don't, it's my wedding, do it as a favor on our wedding day. It's just, the fucking writing is so atrocious. Like, this shit like this was so bad. Like, I couldn't believe it when I was, you know, playing that first chapter. And then the rest of the chapters when Kuai Liang is just spending the whole time just shitting on Cyrax, just being like, fuck you. Like, every time Cyrax says or does something, it's just like, Kuai Liang's just like, shut up, Cyrax. It's like, what the hell? Like, what did she do to you, bro? And then you have Noob, and the thing with Noob, okay, Noob is cool. Noob has always been a really cool character. My thing with Noob in this game is that he feels pointless, because Bihan, even as Sub-Zero, is so cartoonishly evil in MK1 that even in the main game, he already felt like Noob, you know? His personality, like Bihan's personality in this game, has just always been so hilariously over-the-top evil. His voice, his mannerisms, what he says, what he does, everything about him is Noob. The only thing that's not Noob about Bihan is that he's not wearing black, basically. Like, he's still wearing the blue, you know, Sub-Zero colors. You know, and it's, I think it's like, he's already Noob in like, personality. And that's fine. You know, if that's what you want to do with Bihan / Sub-Zero, I'm totally fine with it. I actually liked having an evil Sub-Zero after, you know, so many games are kind of like goody two-shoes, Kuai Liang Sub-Zero. It was a nice change of pace. But then you get Noob, and like Noob is born and he's, you know, subservient to Havoc for like 10 minutes because then Tanya fights him and beats him, and then they undo, you know, Havoc's chaos magic that controls, you know, Noob, and then Noob just kind of gets up and he's just Bihan again. Like, he's just Bihan. He's the exact same as he was personality-wise before, you know, he became Noob. And it, to me, such a failure of understanding why Noob was such a big deal. The whole point of Noob was that he was, obviously, he was a wraith of Bihan. Like, he was Bihan as a wraith, brought back by Quan Chi. But the thing about Noob was that, like, all of, you know, Bihan's negative personality traits, his ego, his temper, that kind of bloodthirsty side of him as an assassin, all that stuff is kind of brought to the forefront, and all the good stuff, you know, his sibling bond with Sub-Zero, with Kuai Liang, his passion to the Lin Kuei, all this stuff, all that stuff is gone. You know, and obviously, you know, Bihan's always an asshole. Like, even in the original, you know, timeline, back in, like, MK Mythology Sub-Zero, he's always been on that kind of, like, tiptoe line between, you're kind of a dickhead, you're kind of a bad guy, but you do good stuff. Kind of like a dark moral grey. In this game, he's just pure evil. Like, there is just no grey to Sub-Zero in this game. Like, to Bihan, he is pure evil. Like, from the jump, he is Noob Saibot. So that when you finally make him Noob Saibot and he's just the same, like, he's still just Bihan, like, from the original, like, from the main story, and then, like, earlier in the game before he becomes Noob, it just makes that whole moment fall flat. It completely ruins the whole reason of why, you know, Bihan being brought back as Noob is such a big moment, such a big deal in the original games, because it's like, oh no, like, this is a hero, like, Bihan is a hero. Well, not a good hero, not a bad hero. He was a hero, morally grey hero, but he still, you know, he still protected his realm. He still, all, you know, and this is and like, this is stuff that even Raiden mentions in MK9. I remember, like, when he talks about, like, you know, this guy used to, like, he saved the realms from Shinnok one time. Like, he was a hero. That's such, like, it's a shame this is his fate. And that was the whole point of Noob. It's a shame that this is his fate, and it's a shame because of all these negative emotions that are now brought to the forefront, the ego, the bloodthirstiness. Because that's brought to the front now, and that's the main thing. And plus, you know, there is the kind of the puppet strings of Quan Chi. It's this thing of, like, it's just a shame because, you know, even Bihan as Noob thinks that this is his ultimate thing. Like, oh, this is what I was always destined to be. In which it's like, it's not. It's just that's the tragedy of it. And that's why Noob was such a cool character and why he worked so well and why he was so popular. But you bring back Noob now because you've already made Bihan so cartoonishly evil and just so, like, all those negative aspects of Bihan, the ego, the bloodthirstiness, because they are already from the start of the story mode of the main game, because they are there, you know, at the front from the beginning. That whole thing of him becoming Noob just means nothing. And I still maintain, if they were going to do this Noob stuff, they should have made Noob Bihan and Kuai's dad. They should have, like, that should have been what that route went. because that way you still gotta have Bi-Han as the evil Sub-Zero. You know, Kuai Liang can still keep ruining the Scorpion gimmick, but you also then have Noob, and that has that thing where now there's that kind of line, and like Noob is that line in the sand almost, because he's the father of Bi-Han and Kuai Liang. He's Noob now, so you know he obviously hates Bi-Han because Bi-Han killed him. But then there's also that side of him that could even be like, I have to thank you because you letting me die allowed me to become this perfect being. And then you have the stuff with Kuai Liang, where Kuai Liang's like, you know, Dad, what happened? You used to be a good person. I used to look up to you. Why are you doing this? And then, so you know, he you know, it's kind of a shake up of that relationship. And I think that would have been really cool, and I would have really loved that. And no, we just, you know, new era, but Bi-Han is still Noob. Because, you know, fuck actually doing new things that are interesting. Yeah, that's kind of it really. I just wanted to just kind of go on and just go on about why I just don't care about MK anymore. Yeah, I mean, I could have gone more. There was other stuff I think I had written down just as like notes, but I've kind of gone over the majority of it. But yeah, in terms of just where MK is now at the moment, obviously a lot of it's going to depend on how they present the next MK. You know, MK13 or MK2 or whatever they call it. Ultimately, I don't want a new MK for a long time. I'm honestly fine if they like do Injustice 3 next, and then they could do another game after that, and then maybe we can start thinking about a new MK. But after this, I'm so kind of done with MK for now. Like I don't like where the series has gone. I haven't liked where it's been going since 11. But this is kind of just that culmination of just like, yeah, this shit is just not good anymore. And, you know, it's a bummer, but such is life, I guess. But, yeah, you know, just let me know what you thought about, obviously, my opinions. If you disagree, I obviously have no problem with that. I love debating and talking about things like that with people. So if you have any different opinions, you know, about any aspect of this video, you know, by all means, you know, let me know below. Other than that, yeah. There's nothing else to really talk about. It's just a shame, you know, someone who used to really like MK, it's just sad to see where it's gone. But yeah, I'll leave things here because, as you can no doubt tell, my voice is gruff as fuck at the moment because I've been talking for so long. But yeah man, just sad shit. I can't stress how just bad I think it all was. Just yeah, like I said, there's other stuff I could get into, like Rain and Tanya and stuff like that, but that's not really important, to be honest. So yeah, I'll just leave it here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye.
We await your return, warrior.